Chosen one, pay attention to the shift in your surroundings because you just hit the nail on the head. You were right about them all along, and the ground is now moving in a way they can no longer hide. That heavy knowing that sat in your gut for years, the truth they labeled as paranoia or drama, is finally erupting like water that can no longer be suppressed by their careful calculations. You held on to your truth in silence while they worked to delay the inevitable, and now that the pressure has broken through, you are standing in the center of an eruption that confirms your intuition was perfect from the very beginning. Something that was yours by right, by blood, by the plain, honest truth of who you are and where you come from. Maybe it was taken before you were old enough to know you had it. Maybe you were handed a version of events that made the theft sound like just the way things were. Maybe the people around you at the time accepted that version because it was easier, or because they benefited from accepting it, or because looking the other way cost them nothing. But here is what happened next. The people who took it did not take it and disappear. That would almost be cleaner. No, they stayed close, inside the family, inside the circle, at every table that mattered. And they built carefully, confidently, season after season, a life on top of what belonged to you. Think about that for a moment. Every roof over their head, every position they held, every reputation they built, every morning they woke up with a sense of security and arrival, all of it was constructed on a foundation with your name underneath it. They plastered over your name, they told a version of events on top of it. They trained other people to repeat that version until the lie became so old that it started to feel like settled history. And while that was happening, while they were building on your foundation, you were working harder for less, wondering why things never quite added up, wondering why you had to fight for what others seemed to simply receive. Now you know why. The game was arranged before you ever sat down to play, not by fate, not by bad luck, by choices. Specific choices made by specific people who then spent a long time making sure you would never find out. And the cruelest part, they used your own decency as the weapon against you. They knew you were not the kind of person to make accusations without being certain. They knew you would try to be fair, give the benefit of the doubt, and see every side before reaching a conclusion. That is who you are. And they counted on it. They built their entire strategy of concealment around the fact that you were too principled to strike without proof. What integrity was their cover? Until now, what here is what is true about a foundation that carries someone else's name underneath it. It holds for a long time, long enough for the people living on it to forget what is underneath, long enough for the lie to feel like history, long enough for comfort to set in, soft, overconfident. What in can overconfidence is always where the crack begins. What in can overconfidence and always where the crack begins. What in can over against you noticed it before anyone else did. That is not an accident. That is who you are. There was a moment, or maybe a slow accumulation of moments, where small observations gathered into one undeniable conclusion, a detail that did not fit the version being sold. A reaction that was slightly too intense for what had actually been said. A door that closed just a little too fast. Something in you, the part of you tuned to a frequency others cannot hear, registered all of it before your mind could fully explain what it was picking up. With a shoppies, but did not tell of it. You saw the crack. And you did something that took genuine courage. You said something out loud. Mate, maybe you said it quietly to one person you trusted. Maybe you said it to a larger group, and the air went still in the particular way it does when someone names the thing everyone else is pretending not to see. But you said it. You placed the truth on the table and waited. What came back was not relief or agreement. What came back was a wall, a coordinated, practiced, suddenly unified wall of pushback. You are wrong. You are imagining things. You are jealous. You are making something out of nothing. You are the problem. And that specific word, jealous, was not chosen randomly. It was chosen as a weapon, because calling you jealous would burrow inside you. It would make you soften your voice. It would cause you to add qualifiers and start sentences with, maybe I'm wrong, but they turned your conscience against you. That is exactly what happened. But here is the first major turn of this whole arc. Stay with it. The intensity of the pushback was itself the proof. People who have nothing to hide do not mobilize like that. The speed of the response, the coordination of it, the specific effort to make you appear unstable before you could even finish your sentence, that is not how innocence reacts. That is how guilt reacts when it is cornered and terrified of what comes next. What held their overreaction was a confession. You simply did not have the full context yet to read it that way. You have that context now. What held thereof? They were telling you that your ability to see clearly, the very thing that made you dangerous to what was hidden, was actually a character flaw. They needed you to believe that the quality making you accurate was the same quality making you unreliable. That is not a casual dismissal. That is a deliberate attempt to dismantle your most powerful asset before you could use it. You were a genuine threat from the very beginning, and threats only get targeted when they are real. If this touched your heart and mind, hype this video so more chosen ones can receive this message. Let us talk about the plan, because there was one. There has always been one. Spilspillev, keep going, keep building, keep performing the role of people who earned everything they have. Keep the version of events consistent, keep the witnesses discredited or isolated, and wait. Wait long enough that the situation becomes too old, too normalized, too entrenched to be unwound. Wait for you to get tired. Wait for you to move on. Wait for the lie to harden into something that simply feels like the past. Weda, it was working for a long time. Comfort set in, and comfort is dangerous for people living on borrowed time. Comfortable people stop double-checking the foundation. They start making decisions with the confidence of someone who has nothing to worry about. They stop being careful. And here is the specific thing that happened when they stopped being careful. They stopped being careful around you. That shift was the moment the crack began to widen. When someone stops guarding themselves around a careful observer, they start making mistakes, small ones at first. A detail that contradicts something said before, a reaction arriving too quickly, as though the answer to a question were already known before the question was even finished. Lotukaud. You noticed every single one of those slips. You held them. You waited, not out of passivity but out of strategy. You understood, even intuitively, that the right moment to act on what you know is not the moment you discover it. It is the moment the evidence is undeniable. Lotukaud, what you know Folan could writ new mantathy, Tarnan Stansom, Hannes Watammonsom. When do you wek alons due to drogrom bekound of Kopik Sertu, 50 Pisser, Tantat Lloyd? Because eventually, real authority, the kind that looks at what actually happened rather than at what was performed, looked at the foundation, and underneath the plaster, it found your name. But all the plaster, it found your name. All the plan collapsed. Not slowly, not partially, completely. It found your stuffed crockeed, dolobar, Euphubius the plador padim proth, donon plastadius, donon plastabotic fi patil the faniwen. Something that was hidden, something that people worked hard and spent real energy keeping buried, is now in the light. Information is arriving that cannot be taken back, and the people who built their lives on keeping it hidden are not handling this gracefully. Watch what happens when a lie of that size gets exposed. It is not quiet. It is not dignified. It is people up in arms. Accusations fly. People who spent years performing calmness suddenly reveal something else entirely. The mask has been useful for a long time, but this specific moment requires something the mask cannot produce, actual innocence. So instead of innocence, you get noise, will be loud. Anger, indignation, guilt trips, sudden references to every kindness ever extended in your direction, accusations that you are the one causing chaos. Every available tool gets pulled out. Charm, victimhood, blame. All of it has been rehearsed, because on some level, this day was always anticipated. The rehearsed speech was always sitting in a drawer somewhere, ready for the moment the truth arrived. Do not be moved by any of it. That performance is not truth. It is desperation dressed in better clothes. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. What a line, invite stars, vodentår trua, punikamin and Pleiadian, what an few wahites, the wishing for a clust of dinner member marif thirsit, panand checked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. Punikama, and the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. Punikama. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind-programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Join Destiny. There is also a specific move you should recognize before it lands. It is the attempt to make your reaction the subject instead of their actions. The moment you show any emotion, relief, frustration, grief, even quiet satisfaction, watch how fast the attention shifts to how you are behaving, rather than what was done. Watch how the exposure of the wrong gets reframed as your cruelty for not absorbing it silently. That move has been used on you before, every time you got close to the truth. The difference now is that the evidence does not need your composure to be credible. The evidence speaks entirely on its own. Wodlo. You have already survived the hardest part of all of this. You already carried the truth alone, without proof, without support, while being told you were wrong by the very people who knew you were right. You already lived through the long, quiet, invisible endurance that nobody saw and nobody applauded. What is happening right now is loud, yes, but loud is not hard. You have already done hard. You have already done the version of this that happens in total silence with no witnesses. This version, the visible one, the loud one, the one where the truth is finally on the table, is the easy part by comparison. The thing that was taken from you was never truly gone. It was held in trust by forces greater than any one person's scheming until the conditions were right for its return. Not a partial return, not a compromise. The entire thing in a form that cannot be argued back, cannot be quietly reburied, cannot be managed away. Time was never on their side. Time was arranging your vindication. Now you need to hear what is actually being given to you, because it is bigger than you may have allowed yourself to believe. Whatever form this takes, resources, authority, property, a reversal of something that was wrongly decided, this is not just a material outcome, it is restoration, full restoration, not a partial acknowledgement or a quiet settlement. Everything that was taken, everything built on your foundation without your permission, everything assumed to be permanently secured by the wrong hands, all of it is being redirected back to you, where it has always belonged. And you need to understand who expected to receive something in this moment. There were people who had already counted what was coming, people who had spent it in their minds long before it arrived, people who had reorganized their entire sense of the future around the assumption that your restoration was going to land in their hands instead. Vodif plans are finished, not postponed, not frustrated, finished, because what is happening right now is not only about resources, it is about authority. It is about who is actually in charge. And the person in charge, the person with real authority, the kind that carries real consequences, is you. You are becoming the authority. You are becoming their authority. Sit with that. The people who dismissed you, the people who called you wrong, The people who built on your foundation while performing the role of the self-made success. Those people are now going to have to answer to you. Your decisions will shape their options. The only choices available to them are to comply quietly, or walk away from what they never had a right to in the first place. This is not revenge. This is architecture. This is what justice looks like when it finally arrives with its full structure intact. And here is the part that will land hardest. They cannot challenge it publicly without exposing themselves. Arguing against your authority means putting the real original situation on the table, not the performed version, but the actual one. It means inviting exactly the kind of scrutiny that would unravel everything they have spent so long constructing. So they will have to absorb it. They will have to accept the new arrangement with at least the surface of composure. And the daily cost of performing that acceptance, while everything in them is rejecting it, that cost is its own form of consequence. You did not create it. You are simply the person who was always supposed to be standing here. Lord, the part that makes this bigger than one dispute, one family, one inheritance. You were assigned to this before you could understand it, before you had language for it, before any of it was visible to you. Something looked at who you are, at what you are capable of carrying, and placed you in this specific situation on purpose, not to punish you, because you are the one who could carry it all the way through, and then do something worthy with what exists on the other side. From that moment forward, a record was being kept, not passively, actively, a perfect, complete record. Every lie spoken about you in your absence, everything taken that carried your name, every door closed that should have been open, every time you were right and were told you were wrong, every night you held on to the truth with nothing to support it except the cold certainty living somewhere deep in your gut. Thendrine, every single thing, recorded, without gaps. Thendrine, but here is what most people miss about that record. It was not only recording what was done to you, it was also recording what you chose to do in response. Every time you could have retaliated and chose not to. Every time the low road was right there and you chose the high one anyway. Every time you absorbed something genuinely unfair without letting bitterness cloud your vision. Every time you kept your conduct clean, not because it was easy, but because something in you understood, even without being able to articulate it, that your clean hands were going to matter when this moment finally arrived. That record of your restraint is the thing that makes the accounting so complete in your favor. You did not just have the truth on your side, you kept your character clean enough that when the truth stepped into the light, nothing standing beside you could be used to muddy it. This is why the timing felt wrong for so long. The accounting had to be complete before it could be settled. Every piece of evidence had to exist. Every authority had to be in position. A partial vindication would not have been enough. Partial vindication can be challenged, minimized, quietly buried again. What was being prepared for you was a vindication so total that no one present when it arrives is going to be able to argue with it. That is what the waiting was. Not forgetting, not neglect, preparation, with the hudon signs and responsive fines, or following, or activate, refunding, or properties, reputations, social positions, networks of loyalty constructed around the performance of legitimacy. Real people believed in what was presented to them. Real structures organized themselves around the assumption that the authority in place had been rightfully earned. When that foundation shifts, it does not shift quietly. It does not drift or taper. It collapses in a way that forces everyone nearby to make a very fast decision about which side of the wreckage they want to be standing on. Watch who scrambles and who stands still. Watch the loudest defenders of the old version go very quiet, very fast. Watch who suddenly surfaces claiming they always had doubts. Watch who disappears entirely and who chooses to stay. To people to madres to found. Watch who jepibla the patient templatisho. Fanatetamalanjo of your time bout. The ones who were genuinely aligned with what is right do not scramble. They were already standing in truth, and truth does not require repositioning. But the ones whose loyalty was always to power rather than to principle will move quickly, and the direction they move will tell you everything you need to know about who they actually are. There is also a specific group worth watching carefully. The ones who knew, not everything, perhaps not the full scope, but enough. They caught the same detail you caught. They heard something that should have prompted them to speak up. They were told something directly and chose to file it away rather than act on it. Those people are now standing in an uncomfortable truth of their own, because your vindication confirms not just that you were right, it confirms that they had a choice and made the wrong one. They chose comfort over conscience. They chose proximity to the wrong power over integrity. How they handle this specific moment will show you exactly how much trust they have actually earned going forward. Do not flinch at the noise surrounding all of this. The noise is just the sound of a lie finally losing its grip, and the louder it becomes, the faster that grip is slipping away. Claudius Murtis' particular version of you lived in certain people's minds, a version that was smaller than the real thing, manageable, a version that would eventually, under enough pressure and with enough people aligned against it, fold. Decisions were made based on that invented version of you. Choices about what to take, what to leave you with, how much dismissal would be enough to end your pursuit of the truth. All of it was calculated around the assumption that you were manageable, that the truth you were carrying could be made too heavy to hold, that the right combination of discrediting and time would eventually cause you to put it down and walk away. They miscalculated, fundamentally, what they labeled as weakness, the fact that you feel things deeply, that you care about your integrity, that being called jealous actually got to you. None of that was weakness. That sensitivity was what kept your conscience sharp. It was what kept you rooted in what was real when everything external was running against you. It was what made you incapable of fully surrendering what you knew, even in your quietest and most isolated moments. What if the loss, the version of you they were managing, never actually existed? And while they were managing that invented version, the real you, the one who endured, who held on to the knowing, who watered the truth in the dark without any promise it would ever matter, was growing stronger the entire time. And here is the irony that deserves to be said clearly. Every additional wrong committed to keep you quiet, every time the dismissal was doubled down on, every time someone new was recruited to the false version of events, none of that was weakening you. It was building the case against them. Every action taken to prevent accountability was simultaneously deepening it. The evidence grew more complete with every attempt to erase it. They were digging deeper while believing they were climbing higher, and you were watching, quietly, patiently, not out of obsession, out of knowing. The kind of power built in the dark under pressure, without anyone watching, that is the most durable kind. It is the power that comes from choosing to hold on to what is real when letting go would be so much easier. You chose to hold every single time, without applause, without acknowledgement, without any external validation at all. That choice is the reason you are standing exactly where you are standing right now. At some point, probably more than once, in more than one conversation, you said it out loud. You said, "I know what is going to happen. I can see exactly where this is heading. Watch, mark my words." And some people laughed, some rolled their eyes, some nodded with the very visible energy of someone who has already decided not to believe a single word being said. Mark my words, that phrase carries real weight. It is what someone says when they are certain enough in what they see to stake their credibility on it before the proof has arrived. It is the language of a person willing to say, "I am going to be right about this, and when I am, remember that I told you so. You said it, you were right." And now every person who laughed is standing in front of the proof of exactly that. Not because you need them to say it out loud, though some of them will. This confirmation matters because it is not just personal. It is the permanent and public restoration of your credibility. Every person who heard your words and chose to dismiss them is now standing in front of undeniable evidence that dismissal was a serious mistake. You do not have to say a single word. The outcome says it for you, louder than anything you could say yourself. Some people are going to come toward you now with genuine warmth. These are the ones who stayed when staying cost something. The ones who believed what you were saying before there was anything visible to point at. Honor those people, they are the real ones. They took a risk on truth when the comfortable position was silence, and they are now watching that risk pay off in ways they had always hoped it would. Others will arrive with warmth that carries a different weight underneath it. Warmth that is arriving now, specifically now, because the power arrangement has shifted and a quick calculation has been made about which side to be visibly on. You will know the difference. You have always been able to read what is actually happening beneath the surface. Trust that ability. You do not need to call it out publicly. You do not need to perform any particular reaction at all. You can receive every congratulation with complete grace while seeing through each one completely. That is not a contradiction. That is the particular authority of someone who sees clearly and requires no one's permission to keep seeing. Whatever is being placed in your hands, resources, authority, the power to make decisions that others must live with, it arrives with a new role. A role you have not held in this specific context before, and stepping into it fully may feel unfamiliar at first because you have spent so long being told you were not built for it. You were always built for it. The discomfort is just newness, not incompatibility. You are the authority now. Your decisions shape the options available to others. And some of the people who now answer to your authority are the exact same people who spent a long time working to keep you answering to theirs. That will be uncomfortable for them. Good. Discomfort in this case is honest. But here is the most important thing about this new position. Do not become what was done to you. You have the power now. You could use it the way it was used against you, small, punitive, self-serving. You could make every person who wronged you feel that wrong reflected back on them in their daily life. Not because anyone deserves protection from consequences. That is a separate conversation entirely on your own terms, but because you are here to build something that lasts, something with a foundation that is genuinely honest. Something that does not require constant defending because it was never built on a lie. Something that can grow and give in ways that what came before never could, because what came before was always standing on ground that was never really its own. Your refusal to take what was not yours, the refusal that felt like losing for a long time, was actually the thing that kept you clean. It is the thing that makes the authority you are now holding legitimate in a way that no authority taken by force or fraud could ever be. Lead from that legitimacy. Make decisions from clarity rather than from old wounds. Receive what is yours with full hands and without apology. And when people who now answer to you test the boundaries, because some of them will, because old arrogance is the last thing to die, handle it the way genuine authority handles disruption, calmly, directly, without theater. With the particular quiet of someone who knows exactly where they stand and requires no external validation to stand there. There are also people around you who have been quietly waiting for exactly this. Not the ones performing relief, the ones who are genuinely relieved, the ones who have been navigating a situation run by the wrong people on the wrong foundation for far too long. They are watching now to see whether the authority that was always supposed to exist has finally arrived, and whether it is going to conduct itself the way real authority actually conducts itself. Show them, not as a performance, as proof. You get to be the living evidence that what should have been in charge all along would have done it right. That is not a small thing. That is a legacy. And legacies are built one clear, grounded, honest decision at a time. One clear Beowulf one. There is what was never visible from that opening. The water was you. Not what was happening around you. Not the external forces moving on your behalf. You were the force. Your refusal to release what you knew, your grip on the truth, even when the truth felt small and the lie felt enormous. Your decision, made privately, repeatedly, at real cost, to keep the knowing alive, even when everything around you was arguing for you to let it go. That was the rising force. That was the patient, inevitable thing that no amount of suppression could stop, that filled every crack, that reached every corner, that rose and rose until the hidden things had nowhere left to hide. You were never just the witness to this situation. You were the thing that made the situation unable to stay buried. At the beginning, something was taken from you before you had the standing to stop it. You were surrounded by people who either participated or chose not to see. You were left carrying a truth with no authority to enforce it and no audience ready to hear it. That was the lowest point, the place where most people eventually put the weight down and walk away. You did not walk away. You carried it forward, through every dismissal, through every time you were called wrong by people who knew you were right. Through the long season when nothing visible was changing, when the lie was still operating at full strength, when the people benefiting from your foundation were still moving through the world with the quiet confidence of people who believe they have secured everything permanently. You felt the weight of it. You felt it without performance, without anyone watching, in the private hours when there was nothing to be brave for except the truth itself, and you held it anyway. Look at what that holding produced. Look at where you are standing, not behind anyone, not beneath anyone, in the position that was always supposed to be yours, with the record clean, with the backing of something none of them anticipated, with the truth in your hands and the proof in plain sight of everyone who once chose not to believe you.
You did not get here by accident. You got here because you refused to accept the version of reality that was being sold to you. Because every time you were told you were wrong, something in you said quietly, privately, without needing to announce it to anyone, "No, I am not wrong." That quiet refusal, sustained without acknowledgement or reward over a long stretch of time, that is the whole thing. That is the single quality that no amount of scheming could account for or overcome. Others built something impressive on ground that was never theirs. You built yourself, and yourself, the real pressure-forged, truth-holding version of yourself, is worth more than anything ever constructed on a stolen foundation. Because what was constructed on that foundation is ending right now, and what you are is only beginning. The truth is out. The restoration is landing where it always should have landed. The authority is in the hands it was always supposed to be in. You, chosen one, are standing in the middle of all of it, not as the one who nearly did not make it, as the one who made it, as the one who was right, as the one who held the truth when no one else would, and who now gets to watch it speak for itself in front of every person who once refused to hear it. You hit the nail on the head. Every single time you spoke the truth and were told you were wrong. Every single time you trusted what you felt and were told it was just anxiety. Every single time you saw through the performance and were told you were paranoid. Every single time. And the water that has been rising your entire life, patiently, invisibly, unstoppably, has finally